What's going on, FPL managers? Welcome to a new video from Fantasy Football Scout. It's game week 3 time. We're talking transfers. Plenty to get through this week. And Rob from FPL Hall has been kind enough to join me this week. So, Rob, how are you feeling after game week 2?
Delighted. Because the strangest thing, so in pre-season when I did the don't have Bruno and Salah video, and obviously that was a huge discussion, in game week 1, it was the perfect problem for me because they both banged. And I said, when they both bang, you're in trouble. I'm like 1.5 million. And this game week, where I always say the one that you don't have, you'll have a successful game week. And that's pretty much what's happened. So I've gone from like 1.5 million to about 600K with still a couple of players left. So
well, it's funny you say that. I mean, you're not seeing double, everyone. We do have exactly the same rank after game week 2. We're both 148 points cumulatively. So it's interesting. And we both have gone Bruno at the start of the season, which is what you were talking about. You had a bad game week 1. So did I. This week wasn't too bad. So, yeah.
It wasn't even that bad. It was crazy. 90 points didn't even get your top million. That's nuts.
Absolutely. That's crazy. Just goes to show, one player isn't superior, by a massive amount. And both popular captain picks blank this week, Salah and Bruno. How are you feeling just out of interest about not owning Bruno? Obviously game week 1 was a huge kick in the teeth, but are you feeling more confident about going without him, or are you looking to bring him in?
Terrified. Every single game week. But it would be the same thing if I didn't have Salah, because I'm potentially going to go from Salah to Bruno this game week, because I was never Bruno because I didn't think he was a good asset, and the whole discussion for the other video. He is fantastic. He's a great option. My argument is not having both of them if you want to attack the rank. And I just feel as though with Chelsea coming up for Salah, this whole international issue. Now, I know Liverpool have just come out and said that apparently they've refused him to go and play for Egypt, but still a little bit up in the air. But I'm just having one of them, and I compared the fixtures and the form, so that could be my move, actually. One of my two transfers.
We'll definitely talk about the Salah international news stuff coming out, because subject of this video, Salah out, is a bit tongue-in-cheek to a certain extent, because there is a transfer plan out there that you can get rid of Salah for the next couple of games if he was a doubt for game week 4. It doesn't look like that might happen, but we will talk about international break stuff another time. But let's move on to talking about your team, about our teams, just to see how we got on in game week 2. Let's have a look, see if I've got it set up. Yes, we've got your team right up on the screen. 65 points with Barnes and Antonio left to play. What did you like about this game week?
The luck of that Liverpool defence. 12 points from Trent and 11 from Tsimikas. And I think I saw somewhere just over 12% of FPL managers have both of them, which you can be happy about those returns. But I'm going to be honest, Liverpool have been pretty lucky. I think Alisson he had a bit of an issue towards the end of last season. I think he was making a lot of mistakes, but I think Alisson has started the season incredibly for Liverpool. And I genuinely think they've been really, really fortunate to come away with 2 clean sheets and 11 points.
Yeah, I agree with you. Alisson is one of the best shot stoppers out there, and he's definitely proved that in the first 2 game weeks. Certainly watching the games, I feel like Liverpool were a tad fortunate. But, statistical wise, it probably wasn't too bad. I don't think the XG for their opponents was too great, but it did worry you a little bit, and I agree. But Tsimikas probably doesn't become an option anymore with Robertson on the verge of coming back. So it'd be interesting to see what's your plan for Tsimikas? Is he going to go to another 4.0 defender?
As originally, before news came out about, so Veltman is on my bench and he was supposed to be my cover. So obviously after the deadline, he has a COVID issue. Now he was just isolating, but now he's not going to be back till after the international break. So the problem that I've got is initially I would have fingers crossed, Tsimikas should be going up, and then I can get 0.1, and I'll probably go down to is it Livramento, the young fullback at Southampton for 4 million.
Man of the match.
Man of the match, fantastic performance. Wasn't scared to get forward. It's not an exciting pick, but it's a 4 million defender to cover. But I think Tsimikas is just going to have to wait, because if you look at the rest of my team in the international problems, my wonderful goalkeeper Martinez, he is, I think the South American clubs are a lot more likely to miss these games because they play like on a Thursday night and then it's the weekend and the whole red country list and stuff like that. So I think I've just got other things to deal with, and I'm fine. I know Robertson's going to probably just stroll back into the side, but I think I'm okay with if Tsimikas goes up another 0.1 million, I can afford to lose 0.2 million. So I'm not in a rush to get him out.
Yeah, no, absolutely fine. I just want to answer something on the chat. I think Harry said, doubt John Barnes is fit. I'm pretty sure I said, did I say John Barnes?
Lacking match practice.
Lacking match practice. Although he's got a great rap game, I've heard. I'd love to have John Barnes in my team, but yeah, maybe I did say that. But yeah, Harvey Barnes, I mean, later to play tonight. And yes, we do have the same rank, same points after game week 2. But yes, Martinez is an interesting choice for you, Rob. And obviously, I think Villa have got a bit unlucky with the goals that they've conceded in the first 2. So
I think they were lucky to Martinez not give away a penalty because he kicked Wilson in the head.
Yeah, that's true. Wilson was just offside, wasn't he? But that was a bit reckless from Martinez. But nevertheless, he's a brilliant goalkeeper, a great shot stopper like Alisson that we were talking about earlier.
And I just want to point out as well a worthy, fantastic 4-pointer there from Shaw. Clearly deserved those 2 bonus points. I think no conversations there.
I mean, the bonus point system rewards big chances created, and Shaw just, that's what he does. He never gets assists. He always just does big chances created. So as long as he can rely on the bonus points in a null game.
That's why I've got him. No XG, no XA, nothing like that. No, pure bonus point. That's why I've done.
So I wanted to touch on this, that our teams are very, very similar, which is partly why we have the same overall rank. I think there's only 2 players different. You've got Martinez and Grealish. I've got Mahrez and Sanchez. But I think for those out there that are worrying about, if you're playing FPL seriously, the likelihood is the Twitter template, the Reddit chat, they're always going to recommend the best players. And if you're worried about having the same team as everyone else, I did Breakfast Club on Saturday. Seb and Zofar, we had 3 players different, but the rest of the team was the same. I think at the start of the season with FPL, it's like a game of chess almost. Everyone sort of starts out in the same position, and then we start making different decisions, and slowly but surely our teams diverge a little bit. So I wouldn't worry and say, what's the point in playing FPL if everyone's got the same teams? I doubt that Rob and my team will be very similar after 4 or 5 game weeks time. So
yeah, and you have to think as well, two differences in the team out of 11. The combinations of 2 out of 11 is astronomical. Could be any 2 players. And then, like I said, if I'm going to head off to Bruno and you stick with Salah, that, like I said, we'll start the season with similar players, but then we start to branch off and go your own way. Kind of thing.
Well, I mean, let's have a look at my team just quickly. Let's transition. Here we go. I mean, it's very, very similar. I've got 64 points. That's 1 point less than Rob. And as I said, Sanchez and Mahrez versus Grealish and Martinez, but very, very similar. And 64 points was enough to give me a green arrow from 1.6 million up to 631,000, which is great. And Rob and I are holding hands in that rank. But I think the ranks are pretty common amongst the points because the points aren't really that spread out at this current moment in time. So it's not too bad. What did struck me, Rob, was I think the home and away importance is just becoming so vital at the start of this season. I think Southampton and Wolves in particular this game week were definitely a reflection of that. Wolves, even though they didn't win the match, were just totally bossing Spurs for most of it. And even though they didn't get the result, it just shows, I think, fans overcompensating at the start of this season. They're just going to urge their teams on more so. And Southampton, even though they didn't win, a very good result against a strong Man United side. So what do you think about home and away advantage? Is this going to be more important to captain someone at home than ever before?
Bruno was famous for being like the away player, right? And that still had fans at some periods of that time. I had 8 out of my 11 were home. So I have been focused on home games. So I do agree with that. But also I did look on the other side of that. For example, I think Leeds is a really good example. I think we can agree that they have a particularly passionate fan base. first game Premier League match in 16 years? I think it was about 16 years.
It's a good stat.
And well, that's how long they've been out of the Premier League, and being desperate, and they missed it last season. And I think maybe playing at home in that game, 2-2 against Everton, I think maybe it can be both ways. I think the pressure of having the fans. I mean, when we talk about other results later, like Chelsea went to Arsenal, and Arsenal were booing at halftime. So I think it kind of depends on the club and the fans and the position that club is in right now. So I think if the club is looking like it's on the upturn, then I can see it really helping. If the fans are a little bit expectant, for example, Newcastle fans, I think they're quite an expectant fan base that if they're not doing well and you're not playing for that Geordie shirt, they're going to be absolutely on your back. So I do think it does work both ways.
So you mentioned Arsenal there. Something I think we're both having a dilemma of is whether to get rid of our City assets after I think we both got pretty lucky at the weekend. I mean, Grealish started the game, but he didn't really know about his goal, did he? He just went off his...
I disagree. I just think he's got that kind of vision to knee it. No look knee. It's his new move.
Okay, fair enough. I think maybe I was a little bit more lucky with my Mahrez return because he only played last 10 minutes. But I think the Arsenal fixture, going back to it, they've got Arsenal at home, and I think Mahrez probably starts that one. I think Pep orchestrates like a meritocratic society at that club, doesn't he? So if you're scoring, if you're doing well, he wants you to play that next match. And if Mahrez got a goal, Grealish got a goal, I think both of them play against Arsenal. He probably wants a strong side. And Arsenal did not look convincing at the back, did they, against Chelsea? So I would imagine that getting rid of City assets ahead of Arsenal might be a mistake, regardless of the rotation risk. So is that what you're thinking, Rob? Are you going to keep Grealish?
My initial plan was going to be for a -4, and it was going to be Martinez with a tear in my eye, Martinez out for maybe a Sanchez, and then it would have been Salah to Bruno, Grealish to Sancho.
Like a mini wild card.
Yeah, -4. Grealish, Sancho, Salah, Bruno, so double United there, because so many people jumping off. You said earlier about worried about clickbait with like Salah out, but actually he's now on -14.8% with 3 downward arrows of people selling him. So I think that's going to be happening with so many people got Bruno and Salah, so many people want Lukaku. I think they are going to be getting rid of, you're going to have to get rid of one of those 2 players. And I think jumping off Bruno when he's got like Wolves and Newcastle and next 2, but I backed out of the Sancho idea after I saw the game.
Yeah.
Like this was a pre-game plan, and I saw him come on. I thought I could just go Salah, Bruno, Grealish, Pogba. And it seems like points chasing, but he's not, because he gets these purple patches. He goes on these runs. Do you remember he came back in, was it 2 seasons ago or 3 seasons ago? And he went on that run of like 7 or 8 games. And he has that potential. If he does play in that left wing slot, I think it could be a 7.7. I think he is now. I think it could be a good move.
Oh, and lots of players you mentioned there. I was going to question your move to Sancho. He hasn't. Obviously, he's had 2 sub appearances, but he hasn't looked that impressive when he's come on. So I think he's definitely a wait and see. But it's interesting that you were potentially moving from Salah to Fernandes. So let's talk about Salah and the international break news, because obviously there's a risk that game week 4 he doesn't play if he goes off on international duty. But there's multiple reports in the news or on Twitter about the fact that Liverpool have prevented him from joining up with his international team, certainly for 1 game in a red list country. And I wonder whether that is firstly true, and secondly, whether or not it will move and become more prevalent in other Premier League clubs. But it certainly doesn't look like Salah's going to be missing game week 4 from those news. So why are you still moving away from Salah? Does that worry you a little bit?
It always worries me if I don't have one of the 2 players. But this is the game. I start the season and my aim is to win. And I said it in pre-season, if you've got both of them with that ownership, I just don't think you'll win FPL if you've got both of them, because one's always working against you. So, of course, I'll be absolutely terrified if I don't have Mo Salah. But just about him not playing, it seems as though he won't play the first game, but would play the second game. So I
Yeah.
don't believe that he's getting ruled out entirely for the whole international break, but also it looks like he could play the second game, which is closer to the game week, which makes it more worrying. I mean, if you played the first one and he comes back with a week and a half to spare or whatever, it's fine. But if he plays the second game, that's the issue.
I'm not sure. Not sure the proximity of the game time is that much of an issue. It's Mo Salah at the end of the day, but I think the reason why he goes to one or not the other is because one is in an amber list country.
Yeah.
And Egypt is in the red list. Obviously, these are getting reviewed apparently on Wednesday, so it's definitely worth holding your transfers until then to just get clarification, because we don't know ourselves. We're just speculating. But if Salah goes to, I think it's Gabon is the second one. He's double jabbed. He must be, and he comes back and he'll be fine to play in that Leeds match. I mean, so
I don't know if he is, because Newcastle came out. Steve Bruce came out and said there's players that he's got who aren't vaccinated. So.
I mean, this is part of the problem, isn't it? But the problem is, I think that Leeds fixture for Liverpool in game week 4 is very juicy, considering.
But it's away. All I'm thinking is but Bruno's got Newcastle at home, so I'm not looking at it as a 1v1 fixture. I'm not looking at it as Newcastle against Leeds, Bruno against Salah. I've got to look at game week 3, which is I think Chelsea at home. I'm looking at it in a pair there. Not just a single game week. And over the course of 2 game weeks, I think Bruno outscores Salah.
Okay. I mean, that's fine. Let's talk about some fixture swings now. Let's move on. So I've got 5 teams here: Wolves, Chelsea, Leeds, Villa, and Man United, who are undergoing an array of fixture swings coming up. So Wolves have a good run of fixtures starting from game week 4, and they're one of the teams that have been most underperforming in the last couple of game weeks. Traore and Jimenez are statistically pretty good. No goals so far from Wolves, but definitely a team to eye up if you think that a team that underperforms then starts overcompensating to make up for that variance. And Watford, Brentford, Southampton, and Newcastle from game weeks 4 to 7 is very appealing. Chelsea, we're going to talk about Lukaku later on, and there's a lot of attention for Lukaku. I'm definitely tempted myself, but the immediate fixtures for Chelsea aren't very good. Liverpool, Spurs and Man City in the next 4. So, I mean, a lot of people probably will be tempted to be patient and wait for game week 7, but you could potentially justify going from game week 4 maybe in Aston Villa. Aston Villa conceded 3 to Watford, so, I mean, it's not the worst idea in the world. And Leeds, of course, they've had a couple of tough fixtures to start the season. Man United and Everton still scored 3 in them, and they've got some good fixtures coming up if you ignore that Liverpool match in game week 4. So if owners Rafinha should be feel encouraged, and maybe a Bamford in game week 5 is not the worst idea in the world either. Villa then have a bad run of fixtures from game week 4, so Ings owners probably are looking to get off to either a DCL or maybe a Jimenez. And Man United, interestingly, their fixtures slowly get worse and worse as times goes by, with the greens running out and then the ambers running out, and then we've got Liverpool, Spurs and City in game weeks 9 to 11. So what do you think, Rob? Does that echo your thoughts about your long-term transfer plans? Are you sticking to that sort of template moves away using these fixture swings?
Yeah, I think it feels some plans are similar. I remember it was last year, wasn't it, when Arsenal had the first 3 fixtures that were great and everyone jumped off them. I think that's the same with Aston Villa. I think everyone pre-season sort of penciled in Villa out from game week 3. But talking about Wolves first, I said before we started about second most amount of shots for Wolves as the team, most take-ons and successful take-ons, most amount of crosses, joint most chances created, and they just still can't put the ball in the back of the net. But it will come, and from the fans I know on Twitter that I follow on there, they come out of 2 games and they're actually quite satisfied. They just if they score the goals, if they get that final product, then for sure. And they've not got an easy start. You're not going to bring them in game week 3 against Manchester United, but that run following that is really nice. And Traore, he splits people. People think he's terrible. People think he's great. I'm in the middle where I think he can be genuinely a class player if he just just tweaks that little final technical product and that final decision making. But you just see the fear of every opposition. Like, they don't know what to do with him. And that's why he gets fouled so many times and that's why he has to lather himself in baby oil, because people just want to haul him to the ground, because what else can you do with him? But then equally, they'll pass him the ball, it'll come off his big toe and go, up in the stands.
Yeah, you probably nailed it in one sentence there. I mean, I love
6 million.
6
if you're
million.
looking to get to Lukaku and you've got a Mahrez or a Grealish, and that's 3 million. Straight
Absolutely.
there.
You've definitely echoed my thoughts there. I really do like the look of Traoré. I watched the last couple of highlights for Wolves, and sorry, that was a Freudian slip there, considering he's being linked to Spurs in the transfer window, which is something that off puts me. But obviously nothing confirmed. Then it's just conjecture. But going back to his ability, he is just immense in terms of take-ons, getting past players. It's just that end product. And I know that we're always going to wait for that end product, but we definitely saw that last season in stints, didn't we? He is capable of finishing. And if he gets in a run of form, I'm very tempted to jump on. I don't know whether he had 2 massive big chances, one-on-ones, didn't he? And put them both wide, which is super annoying. But it is encouraging. And, I think Jimenez is another one with decent stats. We'll look at some player stats later on, and both of them are impressive, spoiler alert. But Jimenez is just lacking that edge that he had, not last season, but the previous couple of seasons for me. I want to see a little bit more of him before I bring him in. But Traoré definitely does look impressive, and that fixture one for Wolves is certainly tempting if he doesn't go to Spurs. That's a massive caveat.
Just want to touch on Leeds as well. I think a lot of us with Rafinha, but just a reminder about the international thing about South American players is the biggest issue, because it's not just game week 4 and 5, it's also game week 8 and 9 and game week 12 and 13. So even though you can see Leeds' fixtures there, and you're thinking, well, I've got Rafinha in already. I've got him in. This is fantastic. But we're not just having an issue here. We've got it at the end of September. We've got it at the end of October. We've got it at the problem at the end of November as well. So
yeah, that's a good point.
Looking at Leeds, maybe a Harrison move, or Rafinha's the number one man for me at Leeds there, to be honest.
It's probably one of those things that if you've got strength in depth on your bench, then you probably don't need to worry too much. But I think maybe Rafinha is more likely to go on international duty, or be allowed by Leeds to go on international duty, like other than the likes of Salah, for example. So it'll be interesting to see whether the clubs actually let them go abroad. We've also got to worry about the likes of Antonio as well, who Jamaica, is he?
Jamaica.
Yeah, so definitely one to think about, and maybe it's worth saving one of the 2 free transfers for the international break. Haven't made my mind up on that yet. We will wait until Wednesday to see what the actual
cheeky wild card.
I want to keep my wild card as long as possible. I think it'd be useful, especially with the African Cup of Nations in January. I'm aiming to try and save it as long as possible if I can.
Oh yeah, for sure. I was just seeing if you would use it first. We're even, right. Ted. I'm trying everything I can to just edge in front.
I'm going to keep cards close to my chest for my transfers. So, well, let's talk about the man in question, Mr. Lukaku. Let's move to him. I've got a graphic on him. He's in the spotlight this week, of course. An amazing performance against Arsenal, and some really, really decent stats just from one game week, of course. But when you compare it to on a per appearance basis, he is frighteningly good. Joint 6th for attacking returns, that's just 1 per appearance. 1.58 for XGI, which is second, only behind Antonio. 3 big attempts, that's big chances plus big chances created, that's second out of any single player. And 8 small attempts, that's shots plus chances created that aren't big chances, and he's first for that out of any player. That's 8 per appearance. That's just insane. 11 shots and chances created in one single match is just absolutely insane. And you don't even need me to quote stats to you to say, I mean, if you watch that match, how impressive he was. I'm really, really tempted to bring him in, but that fixture run, as we saw earlier, is pretty poor. But does that matter to you, Rob? You mentioned something to me yesterday when we were talking about it, about centre-back matchups and how he might potentially struggle a little bit more with some more sturdy centre-backs such as Van Dijk and Matip.
Yeah. So with Lukaku, I think we know his quality, but you've got to keep in mind he's 11.5 million as a forward. So, you know, he gets just as a smaller note before I get onto the idea of the centre-back matchup is things like bonus points. So a forward, I think they get 24 bonus points for a goal. But let's say Chelsea win 1-0 and he scores. Because of the other ways that other players can top up those bonus points, I don't think he's as likely to pick up bonus. So you're probably looking, let's say, between 6 to 8 points every week or every other week. And I just think for 11.5 million, it's a lot. But like you said yourself, this is off one game week. This is off one game. Now, let's just imagine Chelsea didn't have Arsenal. Now, I'm not trying to stick the boot in on Arsenal, but the squad that they're missing their spine. So I'll give them a little bit of an excuse there. They're missing some key players in the middle of the park, right? I mean, the way that Lukaku just tumbled Mari for that first goal, it's embarrassing. As someone who's a former centre half, I'd be embarrassed if I went down like that because they've just got ball playing defenders. So this comes on to the point that I said to you yesterday in a private chat where Peter Crouch talks about it on his podcast, and he calls it, I think it's the gazelle and the buffalo. So strikers would pinpoint this defender is the gazelle, the weaker one, maybe the ball player, the one I can push around. And this one is the buffalo. Now, Lukaku, one of his key important attributes is his strength, his power, his ability to he made a YouTube video where this is how I do it. Give me the ball, I spin this way, and I score. And he still does that. He still does the same move. He's got a YouTube video saying this is what I do every game.
Oh, I love that.
No one's watched it apparently in the Premier League.
But there was sorry to interrupt you. There was just one point where he was receiving the ball and he just backed into the defender slowly, and he made about 10 yards doing that, and he couldn't contend with it. No. Absolutely incredible.
Did it on the goal. They gave it to him. He backs it up and then he lays it. Goes out to James and he spins Mari. Mari goes down like he's being shot, and then he taps it in. But what I said in pre-season, when I was looking at transfers, and I said one of my points is I really want to specifically look at how transfers are made, how I make them. And it's not just player in general, team in general. It's who is this player I'm bringing in going to one-on-one face in a match. So Lukaku against Arsenal, he's got Mari and he's got Holden. They are two gazelles. But when you've got Liverpool, you've got Van Dijk and maybe Matip, you can argue they're two buffaloes, two players who are pretty big, pretty strong. But if they've got one up front with, say, Havertz and Mount behind him in a kind of 4-3-3, you can bet that Van Dijk is the one who's going to pick up Lukaku. And you can't tell me that that Van Dijk can't pound for pound match Lukaku, because he can. When he's fit, he's arguably maybe the best centre-back in the world. Yeah. One of them.
Yeah.
So then you go on to Villa, and you've got Konsa and you've got Mings. Mings is no shy flower, and neither's Konsa. So you know for a fact that they're going to be up for a scrap, and Mings is probably going to be the one to pick up Lukaku as well. So then you get to Spurs. You know, I don't think Sanchez is too much of a pushover. Dyer isn't afraid to stick his head in. So, and then Diaz at Man City or Laporte. I just feel as though he had a fantastic game. Yes, I would be worried about not having him, but when a traditional plan is to wait till game week 7 when the fixtures change, right? But when I'm looking and people say, no, I'm going to get in right now. I'm going to get game week 4. And I just look and I think, who is he going to play against centre back? Arsenal's a write-off for me. So who is he going to play next? Because we've not had him in yet. Are we going to get him in now? He's against Van Dijk. I think Van Dijk can deal with it. He's against Mings. Don't get me wrong. He's probably better. He's better than Mings. But yeah, am I going to spend 11.5 million on that? I don't think so.
Oh, I don't know. I sort of disagree with you to a certain extent. And it's a really good point about the matchups, though. But I think if you just focus on him backing into a defender, yes, I think he's going to get more of a challenge from a Buffalo-like centre-back, as you put it. But I think he's probably versatile enough to to manage it in different ways and concoct a different solution. He's good in the air. He's rapid. He's gonna have different opportunities to score. So I do agree with you. Obviously, the fixtures are tough, and I think the centre back matchups are going to be more difficult to deal with than the likes of Arsenal. I am still tempted though. He is a class act.
I think he'll be getting assists then. I think if, say, Van Dijk's behind him and he holds up the ball and he pings it round the corner to, let's say they want to start Werner for a game or Havertz or Mount or whoever. And then when he tries to go round Van Dijk to get into the box, I think he holds him up. So I think he could end up being the assist or the assister. Yeah, he can score corners, but any big striker up front can.
100%. I think this is partly why I do think he's going to be worth 11.5 million. But I mean, that game yesterday, he had one big chance created and 2 big chances. It just shows that he's not just going to score goals the whole time. He will be an assister. And I think if you've got those 2 strings to your bow, that's potentially what brings you up to the likes of Bruno Fernandes and Mo Salah. So he could be as prolific. I'll say that with a high pitched voice because it probably is a little bit. He could be, but yeah, it's a bit bold to say that now because Salah and Fernandes are proven FPL multi-year 250 point plus performers. We yet to see that with Lukaku, but he has really matured and become a sophisticated player. So.
It is difficult, but and this is a good thing about perhaps not having both Bruno and Salah is the fact that I think if you only say you have Bruno, I think you could squeeze in Son and Lukaku, which is a move that I could be making. But I think I'm not going to take the Arsenal result as this is him. I want to see some like Sancho. We talked about Sancho earlier. He's a wait and see for me, and his ownership's low enough that I'm not as worried about it.
That's fair enough. It's difficult. I think I want to keep Mahrez for one more game week because game week 3 against Arsenal I think is fine. But then it sort of goes, well, Lukaku's got Villa and then he's going to have a long run of games. I could do Mahrez down to someone and then upgrade Ings in game week 4, who also has a difficult game week run of games from game week 4 up to Lukaku. That is something that I'm definitely looking at, and I am tempted, but I just don't know whether it's too knee jerk. But I do like the look of Lukaku. But it's
how can you get to Lukaku?
Well, so I could this week, for example, do Mahrez down to like Damari Gray or Smith Rowe, and then Ings up to Lukaku. And I have the exact funds for that.
Would that be a bench or a player?
That I would play, yeah, I would have to play Smith Rowe or Ayling or someone like that.
This is what I mean. This is where it comes with the point. So, and again, when I talked about this preseason, and this isn't just you bringing in Lukaku's points, you are taking out Ings and so it's not Lukaku by himself. You are doing Lukaku and Smith Rowe versus Mahrez and Ings, and I just think Mahrez and Ings is that price point, that split. Let's say you change Ings to Calvert-Lewin and you change Mahrez to a 7.5, 8 million player. I think that combination is better than Lukaku and a Smith Rowe.
Okay, I mean, it's a good segue. Let's have a look at some player stats so we can talk about more combinations. I've got a chart here of quite a lot of the key performers over the last 2 game weeks. And as you can see, Lukaku is up there. 8 shots per appearance, 3 chances created per appearance. Obviously, as we've caveated, this is one game week in isolation where most of the others have had 2. It's still on a per appearance basis, so it's like for like. We've got Alexander-Arnold down there as one of the best for chances created. And inside the bubble is just worth saying that there's big chances per appearance at the top, big chances created at the bottom. So that's the better chances. And Lukaku had 2 big chances, 1 big chance is created. But you were talking about Calvert-Lewin there, for example. He's not doing too badly, 5 shots per appearance and 1.5 big chances per appearance. So very, very decent. But we also could see the likes of Traore and Jimenez there that we were talking about earlier, along with Salah and Mane and Fernandes. So there's plenty of options to consider. Go back to your point about like Damari Gray or Smith Rowe plus Lukaku versus the likes of Mahrez and Ings. I think maybe if you can downgrade another person, just use one transfer this week and then do that double move this week and maybe have that Smith Rowe as a 6 or 6.5 midfielder, then that becomes probably a little bit more long term. So definitely one to consider. I think maybe a 3 move, either a mini wildcard or over the course of 2 game weeks, it might pay off if you really want Lukaku. But it doesn't sound like you're too convinced, Rob. You don't want him until game week 7, do you?
No, I'd have to wildcard it because, like I said, everyone plays it differently. You've got to play it for your own team. And the problem that I've got is I've got like 2 South Americans in my starting 11. I've got Grealish who could get rotated out. I've got Veltman who's out till after the international break, and I've got Tsimikas who's probably going to lose his space. So if I was wildcarding right now, then I would possibly end up with Son, Lukaku, and Bruno Fernandes. So it's not that I'm against him for everyone else. It's just that I'm trying to obviously indicate the negatives for him. And I wouldn't rip my team up. That if you're sat there playing your wildcard, then yeah, I'd probably bring him in earlier. But if you're thinking, right, like you said, you're going to take out 2 pretty good players and bring in 1 poor player and 1 top player in Lukaku, I just feel that the balance is quite there. But honestly, for me, and I pinpointed in preseason, because when I was doing my research preseason, his stats were absolutely incredible, and he's carried it on to the start of this season. Absolutely fantastic, Mason Mount. Yeah. Without a shadow of a doubt, he is the one person that I'm considering bringing in my team because he put it plump on Lukaku's head, and it was an incredible save from Leno to the extent where Lukaku's got up after heading it and he's gone, has he saved it? Has he actually just saved that header? And he already had an assist in that game. And for Mason Mount, most amount of big chances with 2 assists in 2 games, highest expected assists. Chelsea have the most of big chances. So,
I completely agree with you. And Mount is
not Lukaku. I'm looking at Mount for that price.
Just Mount to sort of cover the Chelsea. That's interesting. And go back to Mount. He was always been pretty good for the volume of chances created he makes for his teammates, but he's always been let down in previous seasons by Chelsea conversion. Lukaku's presumably going to sort that out, which does make Mount a really good option, and definitely someone that I'm eyeing up as well. Maybe as a replacement for Harvey Barnes if he fails to do anything more. Obviously, he's got Norwich in game week 3, so I'll probably keep him for that. But thereafter, Mount does become a really good option. And as you said, 3 big chances created yesterday. That's 1.5 per match because I don't think he got anything in the first match. But I mean, Chelsea on the whole were pretty good going forward at the back. And we've got Reece James on this chart as well with the same number of chances created per match. He didn't start in the first game, and that is the worry, Reece James, that he's going to get limited minutes. But if he continued to perform well, then there's no reason why he couldn't be a really good FPL option. What do you think of Reece James?
Incredible. But I think, like you said earlier, if you've got depth, if you're sat there with a 4.5 or maybe a 4.4 million white tomorrow when he goes down, likely, then I think you can take the risk. If I'm honest, I can genuinely see Chelsea winning it this year.
A lot of pundits tipping them.
Chelsea winning the title because they are so impressive defensively. They're European champions, and I think everyone's eyes are on United, City, and Liverpool, and it kind of has people thinking, they're more like a 4th place team.
Okay. Well, here's an argument for you. If you think that Chelsea are going to win the title, they're going to need to win the big games, and they've got 3 of the 4 big games coming up. So you do not think that bringing Lukaku in now might not be...
Mount. It's possible that I'll do Grealish to Mount.
What about Lukaku? He's going to have to score a few games if they're going to win those games in the next 4, aren't they? So
has Lukaku messaged you or something like?
I just really
try to get his ownership up.
I don't know why, but I just really love Lukaku.
I completely get it, but I just cannot ignore 11.5 million. And I like my method this season has been getting points from my entire team. And when we look at the teams we'll go into the next game week with, I've got other issues I've got to deal with. And I'm happy with my starting 11 players. And if I'm going to bring in Lukaku, there's going to be 2 players in my starting 11 that I'm going to look at and think,
Okay, well, your point is that you're spreading the funds across your team, which is absolutely fine. You've got two semi-premium options like I do, Son and Mahrez. Let's talk about those, because Son, for me, he got a good goal in the first game, but his stats haven't been that great, and his performance against Wolves was a bit wasteful, in my opinion.
Okay. First, as being the man of the stats, that he is like Europe's most clinical finisher, right? He is he's him and Jamie Vardy are the stat busters, right? So stats aren't for that. But I actually had a little chat on Twitter yesterday with Seb, because he posted a picture of Son's stats and they didn't look good. But this is where the eye test is important. This is where watching the games is important. And he watched it too, so it's not me against him or anything. But for example, on the stats, it didn't tot up the moment where it was the second half, and in that typical fashion, ball goes over the top, Son's in one-on-one, is in the penalty area, but instead of shooting like he normally would and stick it in the bottom corner, he tries to cut it back, and they tried to get a penalty because the defender slid and it came off his shoulder. That doesn't come in as a chance. A shot was blocked. It was open, and he hit it well, but the shot was blocked. But it looked like it was going in the bottom corner. So I understand Son breaks stats, but also the stat that's missing, where you can see big chances and things like that, is he was one-on-one. A little bit like Salah in game week 1, when right at the end of the game he's in one-on-one. You think he's going to slide in the bottom corner. And he tries to set someone up. That doesn't come through the stats because nothing came of it. So
I completely agree. And there's a new stat that's hopefully going to be gracing our attention called expected threat, which is already being used, and I think that would pick up. But yeah, I completely agree. I watched that game as well, and I was yelling at the television going, why didn't you shoot, Son? Why didn't you shoot? And he normally does. The point I would make is Harry Kane last season, 10 big assists. That's assists coming from big chances created, which was an incredible amount. And most of those assists were going towards Son. So Son is an incredibly clinical finisher. When he's going to play with Kane, obviously it makes him a better option potentially. It probably makes the team a better option. And we saw Kane come on for the last sort of 10 minutes in that match. Don't know what his situation is with the transfer stuff, but he could potentially start against Watford at home, which is potentially when some of us are considering captaining Son. What do you think about captaining Son in Game Week 3?
Well, I'd seen pre-match yesterday that he went off early from the warm-up, Son. And he came out and he played, and I tweeted during the game that his left thigh and hamstring was pretty strapped. And he obviously came off for Kane. And I felt, and actually before we came on, Spurs, the embargoed comment or whatever it is, has come out and said he can't, when they asked about Heung-min Son, how is Heung-min Son? And he said, I'm sorry, I can't answer that. For now, he's all right. He had a strange feeling. He got to play. I don't know. Let's assess him. So that's the big issue there.
Yeah, I remember.
You don't take Heung-min Son off, and you don't take Harry Kane off without good reason. And it was like, what, 70 minutes? I saw Kane coming on, and I tweeted, "Oh, Kane's coming on. This will be good for Son." And I saw the number 7. I was like, "No, Son's coming off."
It's like we're the same person. I'm pretty sure I reacted exactly the same way. But yes, it is worrying because Son normally does play 90 minutes. And I think this knock was before the match even started. So something to definitely keep an eye on, because, I think Watford at home is a pretty good fixture to captain instead of the likes of Salah against... who's he playing?
Salah.
Chelsea at home, of course.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you've got Fernandes, Wolves away is probably... not the end of the world, but as we've been discussing, home and away matches can be quite sparse in this day and age. I would prefer to captain a player at home. So I will wait until the press conferences to make up my decision on captaining Son, because clearly by looking at this chart, he hasn't been actually that impressive in the stats department, and it's something that puts me off a little bit. So
yeah, I'm worried, especially after I saw the United game, my initial Bruno to Salah transfer is looking a little bit shaken. And I'm bigging up Wolves because they've put really impressive stats. So do I want to bring in Bruno and be forced to captain him? Because that's all I have to do if I bring him in and be forced to captain him.
You'll be shielded
against Saints, and I think Wolves have been really good.
If you do that, you will be shielded by the expected effective ownership and all that sort of stuff. Obviously, I'm not sure Salah captain against Chelsea is going to be that widely done.
So I think I'll just captain Son and then just grin and bear it.
Yeah, Antonio's not a bad shout either. Who's he got? He's got Palace.
I think.
Palace at home, so that's also a decent shout. Let's have another chat about some of these other players. We've got the West Ham boys who are yet to play. They've only got one game under their belt on this chart, and we've also got Vardy as well, who is one game. But we've got the likes of Rafinha and Jota, Sarr, Pogba. Any of those names take your fancy?
No, not really. But earlier you talked about the likes of Smith Rowe. Would you not be tempted possibly by Gray at Everton?
Yeah, he was something I mentioned along with Smith Rowe earlier, and he was. His stats aren't that great, but it's one of those things we watch him on the pitch and he looks lively, doesn't he?
Yeah, he had a really good game, but I think he was the biggest overperformer for game week 2.
Right, that probably says it all. But I mean, and if you're looking at Calvert-Lewin instead of Danny Ings or something, would I want to double up on the Everton attack?
No.
Not 100%. So it's one of those things. If you want Calvert-Lewin, you probably don't look at Gray. You look at someone else. Like Odegaard's not a bad shout at 5.5 as well. But it's Arsenal, isn't it? So
not for me.
I'm sure they're going to rally at some point, Arsenal, but not great. And they've got City up next, so it's a wait and see, I think. Right, anything we want to talk about else on this chart? I don't think so. Let's move on to talk about defence, because I think that might be quite prevalent. Not prevalent, important. So we've got defence here, and this is just for the first couple of games. Top right is basically the teams that have conceded the most chances. We've got the chances split by big chances and small chances. So we've got Arsenal and Burnley and Norwich, but top right there, which sort of means they've conceded the most. And I guess that's not really surprising from Arsenal's perspective, considering their opponents. And Norwich have played City, of course. Burnley have played Liverpool. So I think quite a lot of the opponents is going to make a massive difference here. Chelsea and City, down bottom left. It's just not surprising, and it's not different. It's not different from what we saw last season, so that's massively encouraging if you want to invest in the Chelsea defence particularly.
Who would you go? Who would you back? Because of rotation and the players that they've got, apart from Mendy and goal, it's just like Edison at City. Who do you back?
Yeah,
Chelsea defence.
The problem with City is obviously the rotation, but I guess the rotation is prevalent in
both of them.
Yeah. So I think you'd have to go Reece James and just hope that he plays more often, like 3 and 4 or something. But you have to make sure you've got cover on your bench. And with Man City, probably Diaz, maybe. I mean, he got
it's got to be Diaz.
He got a good assist for Mahrez at the weekend, so he's clearly got a couple of attacking returns in him. Worrying about Stones, though. I thought Stones was going to start the season, but he's been nowhere to be seen, so it must be an injury worry. Let's move on to I wanted to talk about the teams at bottom left here. We've got Wolves and Aston Villa. And what I was going to say to you earlier about Martinez, I wouldn't worry about Martinez, is that Aston Villa have conceded 1.5 small chance goals per appearance. So the numbers in the bubble, we've got the big goals conceded, we've got the small goals conceded at the bottom. And that just means that they're conceding more of the difficult efforts, which I wouldn't worry about, because those are going to fleet away. Martinez is one of the best shot stopper in the league, which is why he probably hasn't conceded a big chance. He's a really good reaction saver. So yeah. I wouldn't worry about the Aston Villa defence too much just yet. I think Tottenham on this chart should be pretty thankful that they haven't conceded a single goal, because a lot of shots conceded in total. And Wolves should have had something yesterday, I think. Leeds, I think, should count themselves pretty unlucky. That those 2 small goals conceded, probably coming off the back of the Fernandes hat-trick in game week 1. But yeah, got to worry about Arsenal potentially. But yeah, does anything else strike you about that chart? Anything we should be worried about? Or
I just don't think that, to be honest, that there are any surprises in this chart. I think we knew Norwich were going to be difficult. Arsenal were going to find it difficult. Southampton just lost Vestergaard. I think, Burnley, Burnley just feels a little bit stale. You know, I can't tell you the last time Burnley bought someone or changed something. You know what I mean?
They don't need to buy anyone.
They don't need to. They tick along nicely and they bank the money every season. It's great. Newcastle up there. There's just the split. If you drew a line in the top right and the bottom left here, I'd just probably put Watford in that top right corner and I'd call it a day. I'd say, yeah, that's exactly what I would have predicted pre-season.
I mean, that's interesting because obviously this chart's going to be a little bit skewed by the opponents that they've already played. But if you just take the opponents out of that, then I probably agree with you. They probably are going to end up there. Maybe it's a little bit harsh with Arsenal. Because Arsenal,
you can say easy on Villa. You said about Villa, but we all knew the first 3 games were, lovely on paper. But come back in game week 8 and we'll have a look where Villa is on this chart. And
they did concede plenty of
popping up in that top right corner.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, I think the proportion of small chance they concede is much bigger than the big chances. So they're not bad. John Terry has left their coaching staff. I don't know how much of impact that's going to make. But as you say, they've got had easier fixtures. Wolves is an interesting one because I expected them to play attacking football, and they have, at the expense of their defence, but they've still managed to, not concede too many shots, which is quite interesting. So that sort of puts me off. If you were a Fernandes owner, how confident would you feel about captaining against Wolves, specifically away at Molineux? I'm not 100% sure. So against Watford, maybe Son's a better shout. We've got injury staff, and the Chelsea are just absolutely rock solid. So captaining Salah against Chelsea is just probably a little bit too risky.
Which is why I'm saying that game week 4 comes into play. Leeds away for Salah could be fantastic, but I think Newcastle at home for Bruno maybe hits him in front,
Oh, you know what? What am I talking myself into? Like captaining Mahrez against Arsenal?
I think it's a great idea.
I'm not sure I could do it to myself because I can just see that team sheet and Mahrez on the bench, and I'll be grumpy for the rest of the weekend.
Comes on, bag the brace. All week.
Oh, I don't know.
One confirmed player to play for the Man City team. One player. Everyone can bring him in and be happy.
Laporte. Who's that? Laporte. Oh, great. Laporte.
He's literally said, he's come out and he's said, Pep said, like, for example, Laporte, if they played really well in that game against Norwich, they're going to play the next game.
Yeah.
And he, pointed out Laporte. So if you're desperate for a Man City player to play in that next game.
Something's wrong with Stones, isn't it? Anyway.
I think it's just late back, though. I mean, it's only game week 2 finished and late back. And when you've had players in City's depth and quality and you're late back, you're going to have to really stand out to get back into that Man City side.
Somebody haven't talked about is Tony, someone that neither of us own, but I'm sure there's a lot of people in the chat that do own him. What would you do with Tony? Would you leave it one more game? Who have Brentford got? They've got Villa away. I mean, that's tough, I'd say. And then Brighton at home, and then Wolves away. So would you keep Tony? He's had a few chances in the last couple of games, but he hasn't looked too, what's the word? Confident finisher.
No, joking. I'd try and turn back the hands of time and not start the season with him. But no, seriously, I would 6.5. For me, in that area, Armstrong, easy, fit, lively. He missed 2 massive chances. He missed that one-on-one. I mean, it's a good save from De Gea. I don't want to say missed. It was a good save and a good chance. And then off the corner, when he headed it across the goal instead of just knocking it into the goal. So for 6 million, I think he is a better one. Fixtures are a little bit up and down.
Yeah,
but for
they
6
are.
million, you can take it.
Who have Saints got? Newcastle, West Ham, City, Wolves, Chelsea, Leeds. So it's not the best run of fixtures, but no. Newcastle in game week 3 is not bad.
But I always said that there's no championship player that scores all those goals in the championship and comes up with us in the Premier League. And I'm not saying he's not good, but you look at the touch charts and the heat maps, and he's the one that's back. And is it Mbuema, the midfielder? He's the
Bueno.
one that's all the way up there. So
I'm just not massively convinced by Brentford. This was my worry at the start of the season. I wanted to see how they would adapt to the Premier League, and I mean they've had Arsenal and Palace. Was it Palace they played against? I always forget.
Yeah. The 0-0. Like if I was to say to you before this game week, Ted, who is going to be the 0-0 this game week? You just said Brentford and Palace.
Well, I wouldn't have actually, because I thought Brentford were more attacking, and I thought they would have, got a goal in that game. But the Palace are pretty solid, and Vieira's trying to make them play progressive attacking football. So I don't know. Maybe last season I would have said that, but I don't know. Brentford are a bit of an enigma for me, yeah, and they haven't proved themselves to be equivalent to Leeds last season.
I just wouldn't have. I don't start with promoted players, or especially a team like you can look at Norwich and Watford because they were in the Premier League 2 seasons ago.
Yeah,
Brentford haven't been, and you just yes, not for me. That's why 4-4-2 I think was the way to start, or 5-3-2.
Okay. We're coming up to 5 minutes before the hour. I think we're gonna leave it, but I want one final thing from you, Rob. I want your transfer plans for your team. I know I was going to keep my cards close to my chest, but I was only joking. I'll tell you my sort of plans.
You go first then.
Oh no. I am genuinely considering getting Lukaku in game week 4, just because if Chelsea are going to win the league, I think they're going to win against Spurs, and they're going to cause City some issues. So I just like the fact that I'm a Bruno, so I don't have Fernandes, which means I'm not attached to Fernandes. People are going to be attached to Salah and Fernandes, which means it's difficult to get to Lukaku just because of that mindset. Obviously, it's easier in terms of the price points, but I'm not massively happy about owning Mahrez right now. Obviously, that could completely change because one game is a massive deal in this stage of the season. Son is okay. He's been all right. He might change that against Watford. If he becomes an injury trouble, then that's...
Yeah, I was going to ask, what would you do if he's out for Watford?
Well, I would probably just use it as an excuse to get Lukaku. But yes, I'm going to try and sort of wangle getting maybe Lukaku, Calvert-Lewin, maybe Traore if he stays at Wolves. Even if he moves to Spurs, he's probably not the worst option. But those sort of 3, I like the look of those 3, and I'm going to try and find a way of getting those in over the course of 2 or 3 game weeks. I'm probably not going to move Salah on if it looks like he's...
I don't think I can afford to. I don't have a bench.
Yeah.
Simicast, Veltman is out. Parika is a rare Pokemon card because no one can get him anymore. So I've got Simicast as first sub. I can't afford a Salah to Bruno move, I think. But if Son's out injured, then oh boy, I'm in trouble.
So
I've got 2 transfers.
So you're going to be the dullard here and go sort of Simicast to Livramento or something like that.
No, I'm going to go Salah to Pogba. No, I'm joking. People go nuts if that was the case. Honestly, I need to use one transfer, probably Veltman to
Ailing or
maybe
something.
Veltman to a 4.5 playing.
Yeah.
Just so I've got someone on my bench.
Yeah.
And then I might bank a transfer. Because I've got to wait for Son, because that's the big problem now, isn't it? If the team let's assess him and it comes out, and if he's strapped up his thigh or his hamstring, that's not good. And I know he did play, but he did also come off. So did that 70-minute run out really do some damage and knock him out for the next game? Yeah. If it has, I don't know, I might bring in Mount. I go Son to Mount.
I do like that. I think this is the moral of the story, isn't it? We've got so much information coming out this week. Wednesday, we're going to have more clarity about the international travel stuff. Press conferences, Thursday, Friday, we're going to have more information about potential injuries. Let's wait until then. Let's be patient and make transfers. I'm probably maybe only going to make one transfer this week and maybe make a double transfer next week. As I think
Martinez in goal as well.
I think you're fine. I think Martinez is such a good keeper. I think Villa have just been unlucky to concede the goals that they've scored.
No, I just mean for the international.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, with Argentina. Yeah. Did you not think about this, Rob?
I forgot my crystal ball at work. I was going to bring it before the deadline, and unfortunately, I only had my Magic 8 ball, and it said ask again later.
Did it?
And then it's not very helpful, is it? Who are your captaincy choices?
My captaincy choices were mainly Son. Because I don't have Fernandez. If not, it might have to be Antonio or Mahrez. I'm not 100% sure. So I'm a bit lost for captaincy at the moment. But I think Son on paper is probably the most logical choice if he's fit. That is.
I think honestly, a real outside pick, if he gets his fitness up, Barnes at Norwich.
I just want to see it. Yeah, I mean, he's only had one game, isn't he? Well, let's see
tonight, haven't we? Yeah. To watch it and see if he plays and if he's got his fitness up. But there's some worrying signs already at Norwich.
Yeah,
and if Son's out, I don't want to captain Salah against Chelsea. I've not got Bruno. Son's out injured or whatever. I'm looking at that's it. It's Captain Barnes and Vice Captain Antonio.
I know they're top right on this chart, but they have played the two toughest teams. Well, I mean, arguably the two toughest teams, Liverpool and City. Chelsea might be one of them as well now. But, I mean, let's not be too critical of Norwich just yet. I mean, it's a little bit harsh about the opponents. But, yeah, they haven't been great. And, they did concede quite a few to each team. But that might have been expected. I want to see them against some lesser opposition and then make my judgment afterwards. But yeah, Leicester, obviously Harvey Barnes against Norwich on paper is a decent fixture. I may just end up going Mahrez. That's just, I can't do that to myself, Rob. I can't.
Look, if you know that meme where the guy's riding his bicycle and he sticks the stick in his wheel and then hold his leg, that is captaining a Manchester City player. That is it. And you're going to spend a whole week looking at your bus team and looking at that little C next to Mahrez's name. And then 10 minutes before deadline, you're going to say, no, what am I doing? No way am I captaining Mahrez for this game week.
Oh my God. I've already, gone Bruno. So, I mean, it's already painful enough. I'm not sure.
Well, the good thing about this week is we might see a more forgiving. In fact, no, I'm going to say it back. People aren't going to captain Salah, they're all going to captain Bruno. And if Bruno bangs against Wolves, I'll just DM you some sad tears and we can cry about it together because I don't think Salah's going to bang against Chelsea. Bruno could bang against Wolves and we're in trouble.
We will have to see. It's been
I might even do Salah to Bruno and then Son, if he's injured, out to someone else.
You did say that.
By the end of the week, I'm going to have Lukaku. Lukaku captain.
I would love that. I'd love that. I'd full on hypocrisize you, if that's even a word. Right. It's been a good chat, Rob. Let's leave it there. And good luck for game week 3 with whatever transfers you make. It's going to be an interesting one. But basically, the moral of the story is wait as long as possible to make your transfers.
For sure, this week especially.
Yeah. So